Welcome to the Ascension Path with Twin Essence. I'm Lacey.
And I'm Marley, and we're your Starseed Lightworker and Psychic Medium hosts.
We're identical twins with spiritual abilities and Starseed missions on Earth. On the Ascension Path, we discuss what it's like to be identical twins serving in a spiritual capacity and provide insights into our work as Starseeds. We create a sacred space to receive channeled messages, intuitive teachings, and expansive conversations that elevate your frequency and support your evolution. Join us to learn about navigating the path to Ascension and becoming the most authentic, aligned version of you. Take what resonates and leave the rest.
We are diving deep into Venusian Starseeds and Hathor Starseeds. We are going to be chatting about how these different star beings come to us, what they appear like, what they feel like, the traits these starseeds have on Earth, as well as channeled messages from these star beings themselves. And this is a very heavy divine feminine energy. So like already it feels very divine feminine. It's like you can hear the woman like, oh, singing. That's what I feel at least. And when we talk about Hathor and Venusian star beings, they're very closely connected, but they are a little bit different. It can be difficult to discern the difference between the two, being so closely connected, and oftentimes like there are times where it's like it's very obvious that someone is Hathor or Venusian starseed. Sometimes it requires more work to dig into which side they fall more closely into. Yes, and I think you're probably wondering why are they in the same episode, and that's because of how closely linked they are. In fact, early on in our journeys, we actually struggled with how to discern the difference between the two.
Yes.
We kind of considered them the same thing. We were like, I don't know, like they feel like they're kind of the same thing. And then like one day I feel like it was like, wait a minute, these feel different. like one day it was like it became very clear. They presented themselves differently to us, and it became very clear that there is a little bit of differentiation from them. We talk about Hathor star beings being closely connected to like the Egyptian god, right? Hathor. Versus the Venusian star being, which is going to be more of the Greek side. It's going to be more of a Lyran in origins is how I'll say it when we talk about galactic founders, versus the Hathor side is going to be more Sirian in origins. Yes, and I think that's like a big distinction between the two in how we were able to differentiate their energies. And one has more of that Greek influence, one has more of that Egyptian influence. Now, we are by no means historians in any way, shape, or form, so we're not going to go into the details of the potential cultural significance of either of these two, but it's important to note that they are closely tied together, and they typically come from Venus in terms of star system. Yes. And as Lacey said too, we have some really great experts out there culturally that we'll connect with. You can check those out on our YouTube channel if you want to hear more about that side in the spiritual industry, but we are not experts by any means on that. I will say though, it is very fascinating because when you do connect with like an Egyptologist or somebody of that culture, like they are better able to discuss like how names have changed over time and why they've changed. And knowing nothing about that, even, it made perfect sense to us because we had channeled differences between Hathor and Venusian star beings before. It's always funny, like, doing this kind of work and having individuals say or ask questions and say things about, like, is this data, is this research, or is this channeled information? And the truth is, like, we've said this before, but none of this is going to be verifiable in a history book, right? Like there is no galactic history book that someone can say is fact in a 3D form, right? A lot of the information that we know comes from the cosmos, comes from the galactic realm, and it's all channeled information. And it's also just experiential, right? We've been doing this long enough and we've experienced so many different types of star beings and channeled so many different types and connected to so many different types of star seeds on Earth that it's just how we've learned to discern them and what we've learned about these different beings from communicating with them and interacting with their star seeds themselves. Yeah, and they're not all galactic founders, right? So like there's a lot of types out there that aren't part of the mainstream galactic founders. You know, Hathor and Venusian being part of this. And to Lacey's point too, like we're not going to be able to prove a lot of things, but it is really cool when you can find something third dimensional that does support it. So Lacey and I chuckle as we did make a connection recently with someone who did talk about like the names, the Egyptian gods and goddesses and names changing and being more Greek and changing into these different like Greek phrases and things, which is like which is crazy to us because we were like, whoa, this is exactly what we channeled actually with Hathors and Venusians. So it's cool to have a little bit of that validation, but it's not going to be heavily supported in the work that we're doing. We recognize that. Let's dig into how these different beings come to us and what they feel like. And I think we'll probably just ping pong between the two and distinguish the different traits and information as we go here. But I would say there are two different experiences when channeling a Venusian star being versus a Hathor star being. And one is color, right? We know they always appear in color. And when we typically tap into a Venusian star being, there can be this actually sense of like earthly green energy.
Yes.
And I always describe this as being comparable to poison ivy from the Batman movies. Literally took it right out of my head. It was like poison ivy immediately in my mind. That's what I see as well. It's this feminine beauty, but the connection to like earth. It's the best way to describe it. Yeah, and I see it like the ivy vines and like the ivy vines wrapped around the being and like embedded in them, and that's why like the best 3D example of that I can give you is Poison Ivy, the Batman character, when she's in her like viney green sparkly costume. And sometimes there can be like a pink hue to it too. Yes, I was just gonna say there's splashes of color as well in this, and that's partially because again it makes me think of the florals, right? And the florals connecting us to like divine feminine energy, connecting us to beauty, connecting us to love, which we often are going to associate with Venus when we think about Venus as a goddess too. And it also brings this very, I want to call it like Taurian, like a Taurus earthly energy because it is very grounded energy when a Venusian star being comes through, and it also feels very tied to like fairies and sprites is another thing. Like
Yes.
sometimes there can be an elemental piece to how their energy feels. Yes, exactly spot on. That's the same type of read I will get when I'm connecting to Venusians and connecting to them now too. The other thing is it reminds me of, Lacey talked about Taurian energy and grounding. It reminds me a lot of like anybody who is ever grounded with Gaia. Like when you're connecting to Gaia's energy and grounding, like Gaia always appears like this green energy, at least for me. And it reminds me a lot of that. Like it's so closely connected to Earth and the elements that it can feel very much like Gaia at times. 100%. I think that Venusian star beings are very mythical in a sense, but it's different because while it's very magical, it feels earthbound. And there's also like I want to tap into that piece about the elemental piece because for those who aren't familiar with elementals, we call like fairies, sprites, nature spirits, leprechauns, trolls, like we kind of all categorize those beings as elementals. And before Marley and I had our Starseed awakenings, we actually did a lot more work with elementals, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
We even went to Ireland and had all these elemental experiences, as well as Scotland with these elemental experiences, to the point of having elementals like come into our bedrooms during those trips and like having these different interactions. And so I just want to say that the energy of an elemental can feel very, I don't know what the word is. Like
Playful.
yes, I think they're super playful. So I think elementals aren't something to be afraid of, although they are ancient and they are connected to earth and they are connected to land. It's just like a star being. They're of a different dimension. They're of a different realm. Like there's totally a different realm out there that they exist within. But it's not something to be afraid of. Like we've had phenomenal experiences with them when we've traveled and we've interacted with them in the paranormal investigations we've done and things. But cheeky little beings. Yes, but they always remind me of this playful, almost like childlike quality, and I think they can really bring that out. There's of course the experiences people have where they feel like it's trickster energy, but it's more childlike and it's more like innocence. Like that's the word coming through. It's like this innocent, childlike playfulness. And I think that that can be closely connected to a Venusian star being as well. Although Venusian star beings are more of like they keep saying like I don't know if this is a commercial, I can't remember, but it's like the she is beauty. Oh no, it's a pageant thing. Like the she is beauty, she is grace. Like maybe I'm thinking of like Miss Congeniality or something here, but isn't there a Louis Tomlinson song? That's what I kept hearing in my head before the episode. She is beauty, she is grace. Like that's the phrases I keep hearing over and over though, and that's very like Venusian. It's very divine feminine. It's connected to Gaia. It's grounding, but it's almost like the finer parts of life is how I feel it in the 3D. It's like reminding you of the finer parts of life. And I think that's like a great example of how you differentiate like how we're comparing it to an elemental energy, but it's different because Venusian star beings do have more of a flow and it's very like abundant. Yeah. And it's full of love and grace and beauty and it's abundant and like it's very connected to femininity, to divine femininity, right? Yes, soft and flowy. That is exactly how I would describe their energy. When we move over to the Hathor side, so looking at Hathor star beings, there is a difference in that energy compared to Venusians. And Hathors, again, closer to that Egyptian side, to the Sirian galactic founder side and origins, Hathor star beings, I actually connect them more to like a god or goddess energy. Again, it makes sense with the Egyptian connection there, but they feel more worshipped. That's the word coming through. They feel more worshipped. And in color, I would say they have more pops of like golds and more pops of like metallics and how they come through energetic. Yes. Yes, they always come through as just this gold, bright, shiny, sparkly energy. And there is more of an ancient, older, energetic imprint to them, I would say. It just feels like they're holding more wisdom and knowledge from ancient times. It's oracle energy. That's how I Yes. Like that's how they come through to me. There's like the oracle. And the way like even just connecting to them now, and this is a really unique episode just because of the fact that like we're almost like connecting to both of them and we're like moving through the episode topic. It's a beautiful discernment that happens with this. I mean, yes. And as you listen, you can feel the difference in how they come through energetically. But the Hathors, like, they are showing me like when they walked a time when they walked the earth, and it was during like ancient times, and um they're showing me like bare feet on sand. That was like one of the imageries they're giving me, but it is much more ancient. It is much more full of wisdom and experience from a time that is long, long ago. It also feels like women in power. Like it feels very much like when females had a different role in society, maybe than what we see mainstream now. It just feels like it's that oracle. It's where they bring value to a civilization, where they bring value to a leader in a different way than I think of like a traditional gender role. And there is like a fierce femininity to it, so it's less soft and a little more harsher compared to the Venusians. The Venusians are like the softer femininity, and the Hathors have like just a little more edge to their femininity, but they're both very feminine beings, which is so hard to describe because star beings don't really come through technically with like a gender. They just but they can have more of a masculine or feminine energy. Totally speaking strictly on divine energies, like the divine masculine versus the divine feminine, how those feel different. Now, the image they just brought through, and this is perfect and how I would describe this. They brought through Harry Potter, the Goblet of Fire. So in the movie, when we see the different schools coming together for this competition, we have oh my gosh. Crumb. Yeah, like I can't think of the names of the school, but Victor Crumb, they're like the masculine side where they're like tapping the staffs on the floor and it's like making that like noise, and they're a masculine energy. that is like the depiction they're making for like Hathor. Like Hathor's like stepping forward as like this fierce, powerful femininity, like in the lead, versus Venusian is stepping forward as Fleur, right? Her name's Fleur.
Yeah.
Fleur Delacour. Is that her name?
Yes, I have her wand.
Sorry,
I do
Harry
remember
Potter
that.
fans, if I'm butchering this, but they're like all females, and they're all like, ah, like literally when they come in, it's like the birds, the doves flying around, and it's very like soft and feminine and flowy compared to like the other school. And that's the depiction they're making of like Victor Crumb being this being this Hathor Star
Being a
being
hard
shy.
ass.
And then we have like Fleur Delacour, and that's going to be like your Venusian side. So you see the contrast in energies, both feminine when we talk about these beings, but you can feel where one is coming from this place of like leadership and power. And it's not, not at the detriment of a Venusian in power, but the other one is much more flowy, much softer, and it's more of a quiet inner knowing versus an outward fierceness. I I love that because I literally have Floor's wand and and I just like immediately I'm like, oh, there's like Harry Potter hard ass and there's Harry Potter fairy. Like which is like extreme versions of it, but it can help you give the idea of how you can like discern between the two. Um
And
like
so
after this episode airs, we're gonna be like posting the Louis Tomlinson song. And like if you don't know this scene from Harry Potter, please check this out. I mean, it's just to contextualize this for you, right? But I think digging into like personality traits of their star seeds on Earth, when we start to dig into that bit, um, I think we're going to see more Venusian star seeds that are tied to balancing the feminine and masculine energies, at least in our experience when we work with Venusian star seeds, they often have some type of role in balancing feminine and masculine energies. Whereas a Hathor has, it's less about balancing and more about, I want to say it's like the duality in femininity. Yeah. Yeah. So, sometimes you'll see people post about like being both, what is it? Is it either or? Not an either or, but an and. I think it's and or. But like meaning it's not one or the other when you can have both.
yes.
So it's like they're showing the duality in femininity, meaning they don't have to roll over and be like so in their feminine energy that it's like only receiving and being somewhat complacent and letting people roll over you because you're just so laissez-faire and like you don't care. And then on the flip side, to be in leadership, they don't just be so into their masculine that it's only logic, analysis, leadership, coaching, guidance. Like that's a perfect way to put it, I think. Venusians being this balance of masculine and femininity, and sometimes it's like within themselves, and sometimes it's within what they're working with outwardly. Oftentimes it's a combination, and that's based on who we've connected with whenever we connect with those star seeds. And then the Hathor side being the duality within the feminine, because what they bring up is like the shadow work side too, of like a woman stepping into her career or power and like feeling guilty about it. Or it almost reminds me of like when women get called a bitch when they're like sharing their emotions or when they're like being assertive. Hathor starseeds incarnate often to encompass and balance that within. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And to be honest, when you said the thing about women being assertive, I was like, that feels like an Anunnaki thing. I don't know why. It reminds me a little. Does feel like I will say too, like it does feel a little Anunnaki. I agree. Like there's a little yeah, it's similar. Similar. The other thing they're bringing up too is that we don't often see Venusian starseeds in like leadership position.
Yes.
But like a Hathor would be more likely to be in leadership than a Venusian. And that just has to do with the different traits because this is like really confusing and hard to explain, but like a Venusian is more likely to take it as it comes and leave it up to the universe, go with the flow, not get too caught up in details, whereas a Hathor starseed is more likely to take more of that like inspired action and seek it out a little more and like really make it happen. Yes. And like how they share it with me is like Venusians are a lot more intuitive in going with the flow. And it's easier for a Venusian to move in alignment when they are within their power and not outsourcing. Now, if we have a Venusian starseed out there who is outsourcing a ton, who's looking for validation, who's giving away their power, then we would see more of a struggle in terms of how they are moving intuitively through decision making and how they're creating alignment on their path. Whereas a Hathor, they're more readily able to see where alignment lies and how to take the action to create the alignment. It kind of reminds me of in human design, like a generator energy, where it's like generators like go, 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 very fast pace, vibing on the energy, quick moving. And I feel like it's a similar vibe with Hathor Starseeds where they're more able to take that action confidently and quicker, and as long as they're not outsourcing either. And Venusian starseeds are going to struggle a lot more with decision making and overthinking. It's actually super. So this is the other thing, the comparison being made to like Palladians a little bit.
That's
In
a
that
good point.
in that, Venusians probably not as like I feel like on the spectrum of polarity, Palladians can like take the crown on positivity. um, but Venusians are also very high on that positivity side on the spectrum of polarity. And I think Venusians can fall into that similar trap of Palladians where it's like, how can we keep you in your power so that you are able to move in this flow state? Because it's a beautiful energy to be able to move with that flow as long as you're not giving it away. Yes, and Venusians are also more prone to victimhood, I would say, and feeling like things are happening to them rather than feeling empowered and in control of what they're co-creating. I think that's a big learning curve for Ascension and for a Venusian starseed on Earth, and learning how to actually feel empowered. Uh, Venusians also feel more prone to taking cues from their external environment and losing themselves a little bit in the process of it and not staying true to themselves. They can often get sidetracked by whatever is going on in the outside world and in their current like environment rather than actually like listening to their heart or like tuning into what they actually want to be doing and what they actually feel. They can kind of like dissociate and I want to say parachute out of their body and kind of become a puppet in a sense of something that they didn't actually want to be a part of. So, this is really interesting actually. What's coming through is a story from Damiano David, and who's one of our favorite artists. Love Damiano. Love us some Damiano David. We saw him a couple months ago in concert, and he talked about a song that he wrote in which he said, I realized I was living someone else's dream. Like I woke up one day and it wasn't really my dream. I was living someone else's dream. And that quote is what reminds me of situations that Venusian starseeds can sometimes go through as a point of duality and a way for them to work through through situations to choose themselves and learn how to put themselves first and learn how to empower themselves and step into that power and feel confident in what they're doing and what they actually feel called to do. So as a Venusian starseed, that's quite a growth edge and challenge to go through on Earth. And it's very important to continue to go inward, to continue to go inward and feel into what feels right for you, what feels in alignment to you. If you find yourself taking an action or engaging in a behavior, questioning that, getting conscious around that, not questioning in the sense of lack of confidence, but questioning from a place of, do I need this? Why am I doing this? Is this just me searching for validation? Am I outsourcing right now? Those are the types of questions they bring up. And as we move over to a Hathor starseed, and when we think about a challenge or a growth edge for Hathor starseeds out there on Earth right now, I think there's quite a variety of ways this can manifest in a human experience or a human incarnation on Earth. Yeah, Hathors feel more prone to, honestly, it's coming through as like work-life balance issues.
Yes. Yeah.
Like they would be more prone to throwing themselves so deeply into the work that they lose track of what's really important. And so it reminds me of like a CEO Yes. That maybe like made all these sacrifices in order to build this business, loves being a CEO, but then maybe one day wakes up and realizes like, gosh, I didn't take time to love and be loved in life, and I didn't take time to do this or that, and they feel more like they would get to a point of if they let themselves be unbalanced in their power and their ambition and drive, like they could fall victim to not taking the rose-colored glasses off and looking at life happening around them. That makes sense. Yes, that's how I see it too. Like Hathor Starseeds, they're more likely to be in those leadership positions. They're more likely to take the inspired action, manifest, create, be in that position of power, and be respected, I think, from that position of power. But the growth edge and challenge comes into play where we see them pouring too much energy into one part of their life, not creating enough balance within their life. Like we said, the example of work-life balance could be part of that. The example they bring up is like when somebody like creates a business, scales it to an extreme level and they're like a millionaire, and then all of a sudden it's like, I hate this business. Why am I doing this? Like it's like their ability to scale and to lead and to take action is incredible, but learning to do that in alignment and learning to do it in a way that is not at the detriment of the other areas of their life that they may be seeking fulfillment in, whether that be relationships, family, enjoyment, play, fun, you name it. It's actually quite a beautiful contrast to these different star seeds because in a roundabout way, it's like they struggle with some of the same things, but it's on the opposite ends of the spectrum. Like one finds themselves getting lost in other people in the external world and not actually staying true to their inner compass. And the other one throws themselves so deeply into one aspect that they kind of lose sense of their inner compass and direction too. So it's like different ends of the spectrum, but they do both feel very grounded and anchored into a sense of love, a sense of being, a sense of grace and humility in like terms of like the values they carry on earth. They feel very much attuned to truth, but whether it's their own inner truth or an external truth that they're siphoning, or I want to say drinking the Kool-Aid. That sounds awful. Well, they're sticking it on them, right? They're absorbing. Yes, they can be more prone to that with a Venusian, but whereas a Hathor might not be as prone to sticking it on themselves. But either way, it's a facet of truth. And I think for both Hathor Starseeds and Venusian Starseeds, it's really important to actually be very, very tuned into your inner compass and inner guidance system, because you're just more prone to take cues from your external world and lose sight of the mission, like lose sight of the joys and pleasures that come with being in this third dimensional reality on Earth. Again, Hathor and Venusian star beings. Overall, they are still both divine feminine energies. They are both beauty and grace. Like they all have that underlying theme to them, but you can feel the difference energetically as we're talking about it and connecting to the different beings. I have to say this is the first time in my life, I think, where I have channeled a star being and they showed me someone I know who has origins. I'm not going to reveal that obviously in the recording, but I've never had that happen before where we've been channeling a star being and they just showed me, they're like, this person. And I'm like, what? I've never connected to that person's cosmic origins before, so I'm like, wow, this is making a lot of sense now. This is just how Lacey and I work, right? We see the world through people's origins. When you understand, though, your lineage and your star type and these different traits and challenges and growth edges on your path, it can really help you understand how you move and how to optimize the growth edge in your favor. Oh yeah, and it reminds me of like we've met an astrologer before who really like saw the world and understood people through the lens of their astrology. And it was like once this person could find out the sun, moon, and rising, they could understand this person, like everything clicked for them. And it's how they saw people and viewed the world. And it's kind of like the two of us, except we're that way with cosmic origins and starseed lineages. Like we can see and understand people because that's what we're specialists in, right? And the same with like understanding your starseed lineage to understand your bigger purpose and bigger mission of what you're doing here on Earth. And the big misconception that people think like their mission and purpose is just gonna like solve everything for them. It's like your mission and purpose is like the higher part of your, I'm gonna say compass again, like in guidance, but it's like all the things that you need to do to create alignment and create the vehicle in which you bring that mission and purpose forward is really ascension, and that's the work that Marley and I do. All
Well,
the things
it's
in between.
it's a creative process, right? Like conscious creation. Like you do bring gifts into your incarnation. I do believe that. But how you're choosing to actually use the gifts or bring forward the gifts and how you want to create to manifest that forward is really up to you. Like Lacey and I always talk about this. Like if we didn't have Twin Essence, the mission would be carried forward in a different way. But we have Twin Essence as a vehicle that we are using in terms of our mission. But there's many other parts to it as well behind the scenes that we do as it relates to our mission too. But we are consciously creating that and choosing how to do that. Um, Nobody is locked into one path in a lifetime. Like you do have so much power on your path to choose what you want to create and how you want to create it, how you want to manifest that forward. I often think it's like fate is not set in stone. Like it really is something that you are carving and creating. I've used this analogy multiple times, but it's also like how we make decisions. And it's the analogy of Alice Cullen in the Twilight series and how she could see the future, but then like visions would change. And that's because as people, we're making different decisions, we're consciously creating. So there's all these pathways of the future we have, but how are we, the vision's going to keep changing because we're creating and we're evolving and we're ascending on our path. And alignment is so multifaceted and really like I don't know how anyone could go through life not having any clue what their mission and purpose was for being here, but that's spoken like a true Starseed Lightworker serving as a Starseed Lightworker, because it's really like this bigger goal and vision that you hold, but all the little like puzzle pieces that you have to put into place and move around to actually create alignment for your ascension path and journey in bringing forward your mission. I also think that it can be very freeing when one connects to their mission, because oftentimes there's so much programming that tells you you need to do one thing. You need to get married, have the kids, get the house, have the job. And that's like all your accomplishments in life and what you're measured on. It's just a very traditional societal expectations right there. But it's just an example of where someone might be outsourcing to the matrix in terms of their mission, and your mission is so much greater than that. And alignment and ascension is really all the little puzzle pieces that we help you put into place and move around on the board to build that runway to that mission and purpose, right? But what they bring forward is the call is now and the time is now. So when we talk about as Starseed Lightworkers, how could anybody not know what their mission and purpose is in this lifetime or in this incarnation? When we look at linear time and history in a linear time, it wasn't a focus then, but where we are as a society, as a collective, as Earth, as Gaia in this process, it's a call now. Now is the time. Everybody is feeling it. Everybody's awakening. Everybody's being pushed forward, pushed up vibrationally on their path. This is ascension. This is the move to New Earth. This is where we are going, right? That is why everyone is being called forward to this now. In linear time, going back in history, it wasn't a focus. That wasn't where the collective was at energetically, but we are now. So, do you hear the call? Are you ready to step forward on the path? What does this look like for you? What are you being called to right now? This feels like what the Hathor and Venusian star beings want to bring to you now in this transmission. Are you ready? Do you hear the call? The other piece of this is there is no correct timeline. And what we mean by that is it's not too late to ever connect to your mission and purpose and your starseed lineage and to actually understand your role in what's unfolding. It's not too late to do any of that. In fact, all of that information, it should never be a surprise to you because it's a remembrance, right? And we are merely the amplifiers and activators and facilitators of this remembrance experience in the people that we work with, right? But it's not too late to ever connect to that part of yourself. And
it's a really important and pivotal time on Earth right now to be in tune with that part of yourself. There isn't a right or wrong way to do it or decision either, right? It's this concept of when you were, Marley, you were talking about like fate, and it was reminding me of the Sandman. We talked about.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Sandman too.
The Sandman, the show on Netflix, which well, like, it briefly popped into my head, but I was like, I haven't quite discerned what they're fully bringing through with that. But the concept I want to bring through from the Sandman that I loved in the last season of it was this concept of destiny.
Yes.
And it was that there was no one destiny, there were multiple destinies. And until certain decisions were made,
Yes.
the actual destiny that was chosen to unfold in the current timeline wasn't revealed to the main character, right? Until he made a certain decision, and then it was like, oh, now there's one literal destiny with the destiny book reading it. And they depicted it in the show in a very 3D sense, which was fantastic for humans to understand, where they had like 100 different, like Destiny was a character, and like he had a book of destiny and he was reading out of it, and there were like 100 different destinies reading out of a book. And then once he made a certain decision, it was like all the other destinies disappeared quite literally, and there was one destiny left of the book, and it was like that's the desired timeline because he made that choice. And so the way they're saying it to me is there isn't a right or wrong decision with Ascension and Starseed work. It can sometimes feel like you don't want to make the wrong decision or the wrong move or think the wrong thing, connect to the wrong being. And the way they're bringing it through for Venusians and Hathor Starseeds is there isn't a wrong decision and there isn't a right decision. It's more about how you feel inside and how you're tuned into your inner compass in making that decision. What is right for you in that moment? Don't do it because someone makes you feel like you have to choose something. Do it because you feel it's the right decision to make. And there's a lot of power and urgency behind the messages they're bringing through. But that being said, feeling into the power, feeling into that urgency, ultimately the root of the message is still largely dependent on your own divine timing, your own path, your own destiny, and your own personal creation process. So that's ultimately what the theme of what they're bringing through is. There's such a power and urgency, though. I feel the need that we had to slow this down just a little bit because I can tell there's like Starseeds out there listening that are like, oh my God, this. I feel like it's like the scene. What is the scene? The Scottish one, the movie with Mel Gibson. Oh, Braveheart? Yeah. And like everybody's just like, yeah,
like the rebellion.
All the Starseeds hear this and they're like, yes, 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 what you said, but at the same time, like, I don't want to jump ahead too much. Yes, there's urgency here, but I also recognize that they are saying like, you do need to take your time with it, and it will happen in your time. You're not behind. You are simply in the creative process. You're in the creative process right now, fine-tuning, figuring out what you want. How can we get you down to one destiny? I think this is the other thing. It's actually not even a goal to narrow it down to one destiny or one path. That, life is way more multidimensional than that. That would be so boring if there was one destiny and all you were doing is trying to achieve, narrow yourself down to one path. I think that they're bringing it through to recognizing that there's points on your path in which you will have it narrowed down, and you're still going to ultimately reach points where there's multiple paths. Like it's going to be narrowed down to one and then multiple, narrowed down to one and then multiple, because that's what you're doing as a creator. You're going to continue to see opportunities come up, and you're going to continue to weave this ascension path for yourself. And it's not meant to feel like muddy and murky to make decisions. It's meant to come from a place of clarity and focus when it feels right and when you feel divinely inspired to do so. But it's important to note that sometimes we have to navigate through muddy and murky waters in order to reach a level of clarity. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's never fun. Trust me, Marley and I go through this every single time we reach like a new frequency or vibration phase of our ascension process. And you have to let yourself go through the messiness of the muddiness before you find the clarity. I think too often than not, starseeds, I think like a lot of starseeds do this. They fall into the habit of like making the fix, like you need to fix it right now. And sometimes you do have to let yourself get a little messy and muddy before you can actually like find the clarity and see the clear direction. So it's not meant to feel like make a lightning decision right now. It's meant to empower you to feel in to yourself and your own inner guidance and understand when it's time to take inspired action and when it's like clear and you have the clarity you need to make the decision. But don't use it as a crutch, right? Don't fall back on confusing yourself and making yourself feel like you need signs to make it happen. That's what connecting to your star family's for. You don't always need a 3D sign when you have the trust within you.
So those are the messages that the Hathor star beings and the Venusian star beings bring forward to you. Hopefully this helps you understand the difference in energies and feel the difference in energies. And if you are a Venusian or Hathor starseed, I hope this is helpful in you understanding your growth edge and how your cosmic lineage can play out in your incarnation, where you see that connection to your soul and your personality. Catch us next time.